I came across this quote as just the basis for this lesson, though not exactly. The devil's not fighting religion. Let that soak in a second. He's too smart for that. He's producing a counterfeit Christianity so much like the real one that good Christians are afraid to speak out against it. We are in a time, this is a good time, where all the statisticians tell us that we are seeing a little increase in spirituality. There's more sales of Bibles. There's a little more interest in things spiritual, what have you. And nobody's exactly sure what's going on, but some people think that a lot of young people are figuring out that iPhones are cool, but they don't really give you purpose to life. It's fun to have Facebook and YouTube and stream your social media, but it just doesn't deliver the depth that heart is really looking for. And so in this vacuum that's been created with all the technology gives us an advantage, gives us an opportunity, but it also gives the devil an opportunity. And so the devil steps in like he has always done with his counterfeit. And this is nothing new. This has been going on from the first century. And people look at the counterfeit because it is a little more adjusted to pleasing the flesh, the desires of the literal physical flesh. And they go, well, that looks good to me. And because they're unsuspecting and don't understand the depths of Christianity and what it really means to be a Christian, they go off down another road singing, oh, how I love Jesus and praise his name and all those other wonderful good old gospel songs and some of the new ones, some of which are quite good. And tragically, they end up at the end in the Matthew 7:21 through 23 scenario where he says, depart, I never knew you. So this is the basis for our lesson today. And this is sometimes where preachers get their ideas, just neat little things that come along across your feed. So which Jesus are we following? Because people want today a spirituality that doesn't impinge on their life. They want a spirituality that doesn't crowd them or make them uncomfortable or anything like that. They just want a spirituality that's kind of like sprinkle a little extra sprinkles on top of your cupcake, if you know what I mean, that kind of thing. They want Jesus to help. Jesus, I want you to help my financial plans work out really good. I hope you make my career look like I want my career to look. I really want you to bless my children so that I don't have to worry as a parent or a grandparent. And I really would like you to clean up Washington if that was possible. And I'm going to say because of free will, that's not possible. After 2,000 years of people praying for politicians, tell me one time it's worked. Now, you go ahead and pray for politicians because we are told to do that in the Bible. But prayer alone, of course, isn't going to do that. But that's the kind of things that people want Jesus to do in their life. And incidentally, I have this list of plans too, and this is how I laid out my life. And I'd like you to put your stamp of approval on my plan. I'd like you to endorse it. So the false teachers come along, and here's where it was in the first century. 2 Timothy 4, verse 3 and 4, he said, they'll heap up teachers that tickle their ears. And false teachers know this. False teachers know how to deliver the message the people want to hear. And they clue in on their audience and they give them exactly that. And that's kind of sad. So in 1 John 4:1, he'd say, test every spirit because many false prophets have gone out into the world. And that verse and many others always kind of interest me because he just point blank says, there's a lot of false prophets out there. And every person that reads that, with extreme rare exception, goes, yeah, but that's not my preacher. Let me clarify that a little bit. The people sitting across town in the Catholic Church today, if that verse were quoted, they'd go, yeah, but that's not Father Joe. The people sitting down here at the Jehovah's Witness, I don't know how they do service, never seen one. But if that verse was quoted, they'd go, yeah, that's not us. And down at what used to be Good Faith Methodist, now it's just Good Faith Community, if they quoted that verse, they'd go, oh yeah, but that's not us. Every single group does that. That's one of the things that makes spirituality so challenging is learning to be honest with ourselves. So for so many people, Jesus is just a good luck charm. I remember when I was a kid, we went to the fair. You remember the crane machines? Put in the quarter or whatever it was back then, and I got a rabbit's foot. Woohoo, I got a rabbit's foot. That's supposed to be good luck, right? Now, I was just like the rest of you wondering, well, it wasn't real lucky for that rabbit, was it? But So they call Jesus Lord, and that's good. That's a good step. But he's not Lord if we don't give him all of our heart. Complete obedience, even when it hurts and it's uncomfortable. And this is the thing that's being sold off on the unsuspecting. They're being sold a bill of goods. Oh, you can come in, you can have fun, and oh, Jesus really didn't care if you do this or you do that. In extreme cases, Jesus don't care what you do. Just show up on Sunday, put your money in the plate so we can keep the lights open and the music director paid and the entertainment going on, and we're happy with whatever you do. I mean, there's some extreme cases out there, but it's not just them. We who have been Christian for a long time can fall into a self-serving Christianity where we're really no different than they are. We show up, we sit on the pew. Well, I paid my fire insurance. I put a little money in. I partook of the Lord's Supper. What else does God require of me? Oh, and we lose the depth of it, and that is a danger. Christ must sit on the throne of our heart, not us. We don't have a place on that throne. Jeremiah 10:23, it's not a man that walks direct his own steps. Obviously, I don't need to be on the throne of my own life. You get the idea. So let's start breaking this down a little bit more. Self-centered religion, it really keeps self first. And it doesn't matter how much or where. We can use the extreme, which I do a lot because I think it makes an easier illustration. We can use the extreme things of 1 Corinthians 6:9, where he lists all of these people, who are not going to inherit the kingdom of God. And we go, oh, at least that's not me. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be a lot of different things that just me first. So basically, I can't say, well, I'm following Jesus because I don't murder. I'm following Jesus because I don't rob banks. I'm following Jesus because I don't steal. I'm following Jesus because I don't beat my wife. Now you go, wait a minute, all those things are in compliance with Jesus. Why aren't you following Jesus? I'm not doing those things because I don't want to do those things. I know where those things end up, right? And I don't want to go down that path. I can't say I'm not an alcoholic because I'm following Jesus. If I were not following Jesus, I would not be an alcoholic. Have you ever been close to the alcoholic's life? That's ugly stuff. And now I've got to be really careful about giving myself credit for being so holy when I am doing exactly what I would have chose to do if I were an atheist. I wouldn't be murdering, robbing banks, stealing. Well, if I was in California, I might steal. You were allowed to steal out there without getting in trouble. I wouldn't be beating my wife. I wouldn't be an alcoholic. I wouldn't be running needles up my arm, so on and so forth. So, we take those things and go, oh, and I'm not doing that. I'm a really good Christian. No, you're still self-serving. I don't think any of you would choose that lifestyle if I took Christ out of your life. You know how ugly that is. Self-centered religion says to Jesus, I'll follow you in that. Okay, I'll show up Sunday morning. I like that one. Oh yeah, I can do a little grape juice Sunday morning. I'll do that one. Sing a song. What kind of hum? Now wait a minute. There are some people that don't even open their mouth. Now doesn't the Bible teach that we're supposed to praise Him in song? Well, I don't like that one. Well, now let me ask you, who are they serving? Is Jesus Lord and King and Master of their life if they can't open their mouth in a song and sing out? Or are they really the ones telling Jesus how far they'll go? And I think you're smart enough to connect the dots on that one. So what we want is, so people want Jesus to assist them while they stay in charge. Now, Jesus wants you to be my Lord. And I'll tell you where you get to be Lord. It's kind of like the joke us men make. I'm the head of the house. And I can say that because my wife said I could. And then we all snicker and laugh because we know I'm no longer the head of the house once I admit that. I always did love the way Sister Betty said it. She said, Bob's the head and I'm the neck that turns the head. Right? We don't do Jesus that way. You do your marriage how you want, but we don't do Jesus that way. Jesus calls us out of the world. He calls us to present our bodies living sacrifices, to take up our cross daily. So He came into the world. Let's turn and read this one. John 6:38, He said, I came from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of Him who sent me. Now I want you to put your eyes on that one. I can quote a lot of verses, but sometimes there's something about seeing it with your own eyeballs. And you can see it in a little different translation. I'm using the New American Standard. He said, "For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me." And a little while later, we'll use John 4:34, where he says something very similar. This is what real Christianity is. Real Christianity is, I am here to do what the Father wants me to do. And if that means I die early in life like Stephen, I am here to do as the Father wants me to do. After all, Matthew 10:28 said, don't fear those who can kill the body. Fear him who after he's destroyed the body can destroy the soul in hell, right? So this is real Christianity. The thing that the modern, what do you want to call that, version 2.0 comes in and does, is it says, oh no, you don't have to do everything in the Bible. Just do the parts you like. And as long as you're sincere doing the parts you like, you'll be okay. And so we sing about Jesus thinking, oh, I'm such a good Christian because I just sang, the wonderful love of Jesus. No, a lot of people are singing songs and they never ever surrender their heart. And then we do have a good old boy system, and this is a shame, but it's probably always existed, where we're just really not allowed to say things too direct. Because if you say them too direct and you point it out and everybody can see it, it's amazing how everybody can see so much, but everybody can see it. But if you say something that is just a little too forward, then all of a sudden it's like, well, you don't have any right to judge me. Why, who are you? I remember back in 1972 when you used to blah, 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 and it all goes south. So we have what I call the good old boy system, where we have silently, unofficially agreed just to slap each other on the back and let each other believe that we're good, wonderful Christians, even when we see things that need some attention. But if Jesus has all authority, and you'll remember Matthew 28:18, where he says, all authority's been given me to heaven and earth. If he has all of it, how much of it do you and I have? Can you say zero? Because that's what we have. And unfortunately, some people are not being led to the real Jesus. And that's sad. We surrender our life. We surrender our plans to fit into his plans. That's the way that works. And that's a little interesting. The gospel is not entertainment. He said, carry your cross daily. That's Luke 9:23, of course, where he said, take up your cross daily and follow after me. There is the persistence in it. The church was never, ever built to compete with the rest of the world. Now, let me say that again. There are churches out there now, today, probably several in Pine Bluff, where if you went in, they've got the spotlights, they've got the fog machines, they've got the dancers, they got it going on. I mean, you want to talk about some good moral entertainment, they have the program together. And you'll walk out of there thinking that was worth my $10 ticket, or $5 or $1, whatever you put in the plate, because it is good talent. But good talent and being entertained does not equal spirituality. God did not create the church to compete with the world stage. In the first century, they were not competing with Rome. They were not competing with whatever was going on in their community. Christianity was about Christianity. It was to come out from the world, be separate from them, do not touch it. It was that kind of thing. And yet, today, a lot of people, we've had them come through here. I just didn't get anything out of it. Now, would you like to question, wait a minute, did the preacher not preach on the scriptures? Did he not quote some Bible verses to you that you could use in your life? Well, no, he used a lot of Bible. I just didn't feel all, excited and tingly all over. And I'm chasing, oh, you're chasing the flesh. I get it now. Yeah, of course you're at the wrong place, because definitely this is not a place of entertainment or to make you comfortable so that you can do it the way you want to do it. So a lot of these people are getting just enough church to feel good, because the opportunity is out there. The interest has been, it's not an credible increase, but it's enough that the statisticians have recognized it. And the false teachers have come in and said, sure, we know how to make you feel good. And there are lots of folks, not just me, there are a lot of other folks that are concerned with this entertainment religious model versus trying to go back to the Bible. And there are still some Bible thumpers out there. Now, we'll argue and disagree with their interpretation. We can take that on at another time. But there are many people that are concerned that church has just been turned into entertainment. That's why I got the quote that came across my Facebook page. That is why I got the basics information. That was about a 3-minute reel that Sharon shared with me that was about this exact thing 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you're on the reels much, or YouTube shorts, or whatever you look at, you'll see some of this popping up now and then. Look, the power is in the gospel. Paul said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. It's the power of God and the salvation. That's where the power is. I don't care how good a trip, the duet sings, or the trio, or the quartet, I mean, it can be uplifting, but come on, what good musical show isn't uplifting? How many of you ever been to a concert and it was a really good concert? Wasn't a religious thing about it, but you walked out going, wow, that was good. Why? Because a good music show makes us all feel good. It can be country and western, rock and roll, good old fashioned, whatever you want to do. Well, that's not spirituality. Spirituality is the gospel. So God doesn't need a marketing team to come along and somehow improve upon his model. Well, that model in the Bible, that's pretty rugged. That's pretty austere. I don't know if we can get people to do that. But now let me tell you what. If we get some spotlights and some fog machines and the ambient blue lights, that's one of my favorites. Have you been in some of these modern auditoriums on occasion? They have ambient blue lights. So what that means is we don't have all the bright lights in the overhead. We'll have enough light so you can see. We don't want you busting your shin. But on the sides of the wall, they're up against the wall, some blue lights that shoot this nice blue light up the side of the wall. And it's just this real warm, comfortable feeling. It's all designed to do that. That's all marketing. Just look at big business and the way they do. Look at the new banks over in Whitehall. That's marketing. You look at the building and go, hey, wasn't that green a while ago? That's red now. Well, wait, that's blue now. And it's just that eye candy is all it is. God doesn't need eye candy to market his word. If Jesus, willing to die on the cross, having nails run through his hands and his feet, a crown of thorns on his head, isn't enough to draw us into a penitent, closer reconciling attitude, I don't care if you get a hot dog or not. So you get a hot dog. You're going to hell with a hot dog. What good did we do you? I don't care if you get the 10-minute sermon you wanted. What good's that? You're going to go to hell with a 10-minute sermon. That's no good. God doesn't need that kind of stuff. So Paul said, preach the word. Be instant, in season and out of season. Reprove, rebuke, exhort. That's some tough preaching right there, isn't it? So churches, we preach Christ. This isn't a show. I think I said it last week. This is a lecture. Now, I hope it's a little better than a college lecture because I've attended those and I've watched them on TV. You talk about chewing through cotton. Whew. No wonder Jordan Peterson was so popular. He was interesting when he did his college lectures. Most of those guys will bore you to death. But it is about the information. And it's about conveying that information to ears that want to hear it. So if we're entertained but we're not converted, if our flesh is made comfortable, if it fits the way we think it ought to be done, and we didn't get converted, we failed. I don't care if we pack out the auditorium. This is the way some people count success. We had 200 people. So, what did you teach them? Where was their heart? Because Jesus had 5,000 people, and their heart wasn't in the right place. And he let them all walk. Can you imagine a modern church doing that with just 500 people? And the preacher getting up and going, we've decided we haven't really been teaching the truth, and we're really getting ready to go back to book, chapter, and verse, and we're going to talk about presenting your body a living sacrifice and enduring hardships and so on and so forth. How many of those 500 do you think would stay around when the show was gone? I'd like to think a few would, but no. A little head shaking out here going, no, and I think you're absolutely right. So Christ came to save us from our sins. This is what this is about. He didn't come to clean up my mess. He's not the janitor of my life. And that's, again, let's be honest, that's what a lot of people want. A lot of people come to me as their very last resort. Preacher, I have really messed up. I'm like, whoo, I can't clean that up. I couldn't have cleaned it up earlier. So I'll tell a quick story. We had a guy come forward once. We were still on 28th Street. He was having to go to court the next day. So he was in a real penitent mood the day before. And of course, he walked forward. Of course, you're always nice and polite with everybody. I didn't know the whole story at the time. He said all the right things, and we did the right thing. We had prayer for him. Everybody hugged on him afterwards. Next day, he lost the court case. We never saw him again. Why? Because Jesus didn't clean up his mess. He thought if he came and did all the right things, that all of a sudden his legal problems would somehow just evaporate into a wonderful judge's decision. It didn't work that way. Jesus will forgive your sins right now. But if you're suffering consequences from that sin, let's say you got AIDS from your sin, the AIDS isn't going away. And if you happen to have an unexpected child outside of marriage, that child ain't going away. And if you've got a drug addiction, you're still going to have to work through that drug addiction. If it's alcoholism, it's not just going to go away. You're still going to have to work through that. But a lot of folks, especially the unsuspecting, are being sold a bill of goods. Our greatest problem, folks, is sin. It's not health. I get health. And at my age, I'm getting to where I talk about maintaining my independence more and more and more. This is why I still go to the gym. I want to be 95 and still walking through the door on my own 2 feet. I want people going, that old man ain't ever going to die, is he? That's what I want. I want you to get the call that I died, and you go, wait a minute, I just saw him yesterday. He was doing laps around the block. What happened? It was his time. He had to go. I get health. I want to be healthy. You want to be healthy, but that isn't what Jesus came to do. Jesus didn't come to make me healthy. He came to save me from my sins. And whether it's finances or popularity or my family plans or longevity or whatever you're into, that's not why Jesus came. He came to save you from your sins so that you could learn to walk in his footsteps and be like him, not like some model out in the world. So that's what Jesus did. And that's what we need. Reconciliation. We need that forgiveness. And that's why he died and he rose. And if we miss that, I don't care if we can buy an arena, fill it up with 5,000, 10,000 people, and all of them be putting $100 bills in the plate, and I get to fly around on a jet. Isn't that absurd? And do all that stuff. If they're not right with Christ, I don't care how many times they sing Amazing Grace and what beautiful programs are put on. They miss Jesus. They just missed everything there is. And there's nothing you and I can do about it. Nothing. Because he's the boss. So it requires self-denial. The world puts self on a pedestal and says, whoa, wait a minute, this is about me. I'm willing to give up 10% of me. I'm willing to give up 25, 50% of me. But, he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. It's about giving 100%. Don't fear those who can kill the body and after that have no more they can do. We don't put the world on a pedestal. The flesh loves that self-centered message. It does sell. And if we would do it, we would have more people in attendance. And Satan would be standing on the sidelines just kind of rubbing his hands going, oh, goody, goody. Jesus said, deny yourself daily. That's Luke 9:23 again, right? So the cross means the death of self-rule. When he said, take up your cross and follow me, remember he said, I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but to do the will of him who sent me. So this is discipleship. That means daily picking up our cross and following after him. Now I get there's a little variation there. We can't really flesh that out right now. But As a male, it means one thing: is the head of the house and the family. Sharon is a female and the wife. There's a little different flavor to it. If you're young and 22 and the world's still opening up to you, there's a little different flavor to you. If you're on the downside of life, working your way out, then there's a little difference. But all of it means that it's in my life, I'm going to imitate Christ as best I can do, best I can understand, depending on where I fit into life. And the goal is to get to where we say it's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. That's what Paul said. And that's what we want to say. That's why we crucify the flesh with its passion and desires. So the fake Jesus is out there. They come along, they comfort the flesh. They say, oh, sure. Oh, sure this, oh, sure that, whatever you want, whatever concession you want them to make. Most of the groups that make concession nowadays just blows my mind the way they make concessions. Because I was raised Southern Baptist, and I remember some of the hard teachings we had back in the 1960s. And the way we see women walk into this building up here that is still supposedly Southern Baptist, and I can't tell if they're getting ready to go to church or to a honky-tonk. Let me tell you, back in the 1960s, that would have never, ever, ever, ever have happened. In fact, I can get you all the way up to the 1970s and 80s, where if it was real cold and the lady wanted to wear slacks, she wore a long skirt over it so the preacher wouldn't see she had pants on. Well, nowadays, that's just silly, isn't it? And concessions were made, and some concessions were made, and some more concessions were made. And ladies, I'm not saying you can't ever wear pants or slacks or trousers or whatever you want to call them. Don't take me off on that course. I'm just saying the fake Jesus comes to comfort the flesh. And it starts just a little bit. And then just a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. Oh, I can handle this. I can step over in the flesh just this much. I'll be fine. Trust me. I'm not going any further. Yeah, not going any further, right? Well, yeah, but I'm not going any further than this. Yeah, go ahead and tell me that story. Because we've all seen it play out, right? And we've all seen it play out till they've walked so far away, you wonder what happened. But if you know the story, you know it up front, you know what happened. They took that first little bitty step. They asked that first little bitty question that opened up doubt in God. Christianity is about crucifying the flesh. So we answer the call to die to the flesh. So the truth, it's going to cost us a crowd. Bible truth's going to push some people away. There's just some folks that are going to sit through a sermon like this and go, well, that's not what I wanted to hear. And is that what I wanted to hear? What Bible message did Jesus send? And most people don't even know what Bible message Jesus sent nowadays. So we never change the message for the crowd. If people don't like it here, then we're more like John 6, about verse 66, 67, where he looked at the 12 and said, do you want to go away also? Jesus didn't want fake followers. Jesus didn't want people whose heart was not with him. He didn't want them just to say, Lord, Lord. Remember what he said? Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do the things I say in Luke 6:46? So many followed Jesus just for what he could do for them. Now, he put a stop to that. And again, that's John chapter 5, chapter 6, if you want to read that. So the hard truth, it drove people away. But Jesus didn't soften it to keep the crowd. Isn't that interesting? So he gave them that really hard sermon about you have to eat my flesh and drink my blood. And they're like, whoa, this guy's off his rocker. Let's leave. And he didn't chase after him and go, wait a minute, guys. I realized that sermon was a little hard. And it came across a little too. So just sit down and let's back up. Let's see if we can try again. When I said you got to eat my flesh and drink my blood, what I really meant is just show up Sunday morning at 9:45, sit through a sermon, drop a couple of extra dollars in the plate, and it'd all be okay. Jesus didn't do that, did he? And Peter had the right answer when he said, do you want to go away too? And he said, where? You have the words of life. So we choose truth over popularity. Paul said, am I your enemy because I tell you the truth? And the answer for most people is, yeah. You weren't supposed to tell me the truth. So the fake Jesus comforts people. The real Jesus tells the truth. Our last slide, of course, if you know my format on this one. Jesus comforts. Absolutely. There is the peace that passes understanding. But he also convicts. He encourages. But he also commands us to take up our cross. So religious language, you got to be careful because, brethren, it's just not the unsuspecting that are gaining a little interest in spirituality today. I'm glad they are, and I want us to utilize it as best we can. I don't think we'll see a big thing because it's not that big of an interest. But at the same time, it's just not those people that can be taken in. We can be taken in. Well, I showed up for services. I put my money in the plate. I sang through the song, right? I bowed my head during the prayer. I took the Lord's Supper. I got to be good, right? No, he said, take up your cross daily. What's your daily attitude? It's about taking every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. It's about really learning to develop the fruit of the Spirit in your life. Galatians 5:19 and 20 and in there. And if we just settle into I'm a good enough, then we're doing the same thing the world's doing. And we've just turned it into a form of idolatry. So I don't care what version you believe in. It's going to change nothing in heaven. When we stand before the judgment seat of Christ, John 12:48, the words that Jesus spoke will judge us. And you can have 100 different preachers say 100 different things, and when we stand before the judgment seat of Christ, it's going to be the words of Jesus that judge us in the last day. He's the one who shed his blood. He died to bring us under God's rule, which is really where a wise person wants to be. So we don't get to edit or soften Jesus. Don't know why we'd really want to, except it does accommodate the flesh. It's not about us. It's not about creating a comfortable Jesus. It's about learning to present our bodies living sacrifices. And so much of that can be hard to grasp. Maybe I'll do another lesson on that because I'm certainly out of time right now. The real Jesus calls us to surrender. He calls us to obey. The real Jesus calls us to follow him. We need to search our hearts, be sure we're following the real Jesus. And as we get opportunity, we need to encourage other people to be sure they're following that book, chapter, and verse Christianity. If you happen to be subject to our public invitation for some other reason that I don't know, we invite you to come forward while together we stand.